We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AV Rant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Mantry, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AV Rant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. Welcome back, Tom. Hope everybody's feeling better in your house. And I want to say thanks to Lee Overstreet again for filling in last week.
Yes, thank you, Lee. Did you get any subwoofers yet?
Nope. Didn't get his OLED yet. Didn't get any subwoofers yet.
Lee, I'm very disappointed in you. I know that there's no excuse for this, that you have, you're a man of means and obvious talents. There's no excuse for you not only using, you got it. You know what we should do? We should break into his house and steal those stupid speakers. So he has to get and replace them with good
more
speakers.
Built-in 15-inch drivers.
But no 15-inch drivers. Or we could just knife them or something. I don't want to do that.
No.
I'd rather steal them, put something better in there instead. I heard something happened to his dog. Did I get that somehow?
Yes.
His dog passed, right?
Wiener dog passed away. Yeah, he was 19 years old, though, so it's...
that's old for a dog, even an
long
itty-bitty dog like that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Still sorry to hear it.
Yes, my family's better. The son who was sick from... We went to see Black Panther on Sunday. We got tickets, and he got a fever right beforehand, so... Being the dutiful parents that we are, we left his butt at home, and we went and saw it as a family and left him here. We mediced him up. He's 11, so he can stay home. I mean, it's a reasonable time. And my parents live about a mile away, and he had their phone number, and he watched Harry Potter movies while we were gone. So I felt like that was good. But anyways, we saw Black Panther, and then I stayed home with him for the next 3 days. I was at home Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday with him as he was dealing with his... he wasn't even that sick. His fever was between 100 and 101. He wasn't throwing up or anything. He just felt bad for...
Still a fever.
3 days.
Still a virus.
It was. He went to school on Thursday, and he was better. So all is well. My wife also got it, but she kind of powered through it, and... Everybody's fine. They're still coughing, but they're fine. You're going to notice that during this podcast, I'm probably going to sneeze a couple of times, and that's just allergies. So I'm not getting sick. Don't worry about me. Not that anybody is. All right. The Olympics are over, Rob.
The Olympics are over?
I felt like there should have been more controversy about the female hockey team taking off their medals before, as they were getting them. At least one girl took it off. They put it on there. She's like, nope.
Canadian women were not pleased with the silver medal. That was not what they went there aiming to do. So I enjoy the women's hockey in Olympics, though. That's the best rivalry in sports, in my opinion. So
I really wanted to watch that game. Okay, so I talked about 2 weeks ago. When I was here, we talked about Lent briefly. And so what happened was I forgot to drink coffee the Monday before Lent started. And then I just decided to go with it. Worst decision of my life. I need coffee so bad. So I can't stay awake past 11:30 these days because I don't have the caffeine in my system to maintain but I'm getting up super early. Now my circadian rhythms are all screwed up. But I tried so hard to watch that game. I got a couple of minutes into the second period and I fell asleep. And I missed the whole thing. I'm really disappointed about it because I do love watching hockey, especially when it's a rivalry like that. So.
Yeah.
Very good. But the Canadian figure skating team won.
Yes. Yeah.
They
won the team event. There was a pair that won. There was a bronze medal pair in Canadians. So I don't know why we're only talking about Canadians, but
Well, I'm just excited for you guys. I mean, that's your deal.
It's Winter Olympics. Yeah, that's
Winter Olympics. What you
that's
do.
where we can shine. I came in third overall in the medal count, so pretty good.
That's right. I do feel like the Canadian figure skater pair. What's their names? I don't really know.
Tessa Virtue and Scott Moore.
That's them. I kind of felt like it was the Academy Awards. After somebody does enough good movies, they're like, well, we got to give it to him for one of them. We might as well give it to him for this one. Didn't really feel like they outperformed the other couple, but they did fine.
The ice dancing has more of an artistic thing to it. It's less strictly objective, so.
Yeah.
Yep.
It felt very Academy Award-y.
Disappointed in our Canadian curlers, but oh well.
Oh, I know. What happened? Where'd you guys end up in curling?
Well, in the mixed doubles they won, but everything else they didn't podium at all.
No.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we got gold.
That's right.
About that. So there's that Canadian movie about curling, right?
There is, yeah.
I've seen it, and those guys remind me of that movie so much. It's just like these good old boys, their mustaches and their flat-brimmed "Make America Great Again" hats. Anyways, so this is AV Rant, the podcast that doesn't just talk about the Olympics, also answers your home theater and AV questions. Get your questions answered. All you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. Go to www.avrant.com. Leave us a comment there. Facebook.com/avrant. That's the best way to really get in touch with us.
AV Rant Podcast on Facebook.
AV Rant Podcast. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. AV Rant Podcast. I was gone a week, so everything falls into my brain. YouTube.com/c/AV Rant. That's
the short one, yes.
Yeah. If you want to contact us, don't leave us a comment. I mean, you can leave us a comment on YouTube.
People have. Oh, I try to respond, but only there. It doesn't usually make it onto the podcast. So
yeah, I thank you for getting this to 1,000 subscribers. I noticed
yes.
that. So that was awesome.
Yeah.
It was very awesome. And now we've fulfilled YouTube's random requirements.
Right. And we'll never mention it again unless they change something, and they probably will because it's YouTube.
It is YouTube. So if you want to contact us directly, it's rob@avrant.com. His Twitter is @FirstReflect. I'm Tom @avrant.com. My Twitter is @avrant_Tom. We have our producer, Austin, who manages helps with our question list and manages our question line. So you can contact him directly if you would like at Austin, TEN, not TIN, TEN Pond. He's got his own podcast, We Watch Movies podcast about tomatoes.
Mm-hmm.
You know those ugly tomatoes? Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you guys have them in Canada? They're labeled ugly tomatoes.
Oh.
They're like some people call them heirloom tomatoes, or I don't know if that's interchangeable or not. But heirloom.
There are heirloom tomatoes, but
that tend to be like bigger and weird looking. Well, there's specific here. I don't know if you guys have them there, but in America, there's specific tomatoes that are labeled ugly tomatoes.
Huh.
And that's what the podcast is about.
Okay.
The nomenclature of tomatoes and how you shouldn't call tomatoes ugly because it's unappetizing, and those are, in their opinion, one of the better, not the best. They have other ones.
As long as they're tasty, that's what really matters.
That's what really matters. But why'd you gotta call them ugly? I don't think that's right. And they don't either. And they've had 257 episodes about it, and they're long.
We watch movies.
We watch movies. It's about tomatoes.
Okay.
All right, let's get to our listeners of the week. We'd like to thank our listeners who support the podcast. There's a couple of ways you can do that. One of the ways you can do it by going to www.avrant.com and click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link. There you can go to a PayPal donation site where PayPal will do its thing, take its cut, and give us the rest of it. So we want to thank Miguel, Jason, Alex, and Robert for doing that this week. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We appreciate that.
Yeah, Miguel, Jason, Alex, and Robert, thanks so much for donating and supporting AV Rant.
Those monies go into our coffers to help pay for our hosting fees and other such things. So, one of these days, I've got a box, and it's full of stuff for you. Those pads and stuff. Now, I don't know if I split them exactly 50-50, but it's pretty close.
Okay.
So I all I got to do is I need some filler material to keep things from jostling around, and I'm going to mail it to you.
Cool.
This is a multi-step process. I'm working on it. So that will also be paid through there. We also want to thank our patrons over at Patreon. If you go to www.patreon.com/avrantpodcast, you will find our Patreon page. The Patreon is a service that allows you to support your artists, not just us, but whichever artists you like. And it's a monthly donation. You can set it up, and it's as little as $1 and as much as, I don't know, however much you want.
Infinity dollars.
Infinity dollars. I often wonder, they sometimes have people who have like a $10,000 tier for an award. So I can't believe it's got to be just like a one-time thing, right? Like you change it after they take
Kickstarter and stuff has it, but I can't imagine that Patreon does.
Patreon must not have that, huh? Must have.
I've seen it on crowdfunding, but I haven't seen it on Patreon.
You're right. Yeah. I got a little confused there. All right. We also want to thank our listeners who support the podcast in non-monetary ways. If you can think of a way that you've done that, just email us and let us know, and we will mention you on the podcast. So we want to mention Randy. Randy bought some Denon Heo speakers from Accessories for Less and let them know it's because of us. It was because of us?
Mm-hmm.
We suggested Heo speakers?
We talked about Heos. We talked about it at length
last
week with Lee.
Yeah. Jack updated his forum signature to include a link to AV Rent. He'd like to encourage everyone else to do the same. Maybe more people in forums will find us that way. So that's what he did on his forum post.
I like that.
And Neil let SVS know that we're the reason he bought an SB12 NSD. So thank you, Neil. Thank you, Jack. And thank you, Randy.
Yeah, Randy, Jack, Neil, thank you for supporting the podcast. And for Randy and Neil who bought stuff, congrats on those purchases. Nice stuff. And Jack, that's a great idea. Thanks for suggesting it.
So in the news, we've got Samsung. They were rumored to be working on the new 55 and 65-inch OLED TVs that marry an all-blue OLED panel with red and green quantum dots. LG uses all-white OLEDs with red, green, and blue, and fully transparent filters for their current RGBW OLED TVs. But the use of filters limits peak brightness and lowers efficiency. Samsung is reportedly hoping to improve upon this and do better than their last efforts at large OLED TVs that use individual green, red, and blue OLEDs by using quantum dots instead of filters. So
yeah, so this is kind of interesting. Like at CES 2018, they were not showing this. They were still only showing LCDs for large format televisions. But they had a new process in some of the ones they were showing behind closed doors. So the way quantum dot TVs, the ones they're calling QLED right now, the ones you can actually buy, what those are doing is they have blue LEDs, then they have a film over top of those blue LEDs that contains quantum dots, and it contains red and green quantum dots. So the blue light goes through that film, some of the blue light penetrates, and some of the blue light gets turned into red and green light by the quantum dots, and you end up with a white backlight. Then that white backlight goes through your traditional LCD filters, and that's how you end up with a current quantum dot or QLED LCD display. That's what you can buy right now. Well, the ones they were showing at CES behind closed doors, instead of having this film of quantum dots, they moved the quantum dot layer to be in like closer to you than the LCD layer. So it was the blue LEDs, then the LCD layer just acting as shutters, and then the quantum dots on top of that. And the advantage to doing that is now the quantum dots are self-emissive. They're emitting the light directly to your eyes, which gets rid of the LCD problems of shallow viewing angles and things like that. But one of the issues with doing that is, of course, there's some light bleed in between, and some of the blue light still gets through what should be purely red or purely green, so they're working on it. So this is a similar idea to that. But now instead of using blue LEDs plus an LCD filter layer and then feeding that into quantum dots, this would just be all blue OLEDs feeding quantum dots directly. So no more LCD layer. This is the rumored technology that they're working on. So Samsung had a problem before making their OLED TVs that used individual red, green, and blue. They didn't want to adopt LG's technology. So this is their kind of version of something that should be a little bit easier to produce because they only have to make one color of OLEDs. That should be no uneven aging between any of the subpixels and all that.
Oh, okay.
Plus, since they're not filtering the light, but instead converting the blue light to red and green using quantum dots, it should allow them to be brighter as well. That's the theory. So no idea on if or when these will come out or what price, but kind of an interesting idea.
Okay, whatever. I don't care. Samsung says it will start selling the Wall. It's a 146-inch modular micro LED display in August. Yeah. No price given yet, and LG is now rumored to be working on a micro LED display of their own that is expected to be announced in September. Naturally, LG is saying theirs will be bigger than 146 inches. So, I mean, technically,
probably
you can
147. That'd be hilarious.
I was going to say, you can make the 146 bigger just by adding more of those.
Adding more modules, except it'll change the resolution, obviously, but yeah. I don't see how claiming it's going to be larger is actually an advantage. What you want to do is be able to shrink it down to other sizes while retaining the 4K resolution. The 146 is the smallest they can make it because that's as close as they can get the micro LEDs to each other.
Right.
So all the articles claiming that micro LED is somehow a competition for OLED, I'm like, no, they're completely different markets.
Right.
But
this is for businesses.
Pretty much. Yeah.
And
I will be interested.
stadiums.
They at CES they were like, it could be this year. It might be 9 years away. So it's interesting. They're like, no, we're going to sell it this year. I have no idea what the price will be. Probably the $2 million figure that was being thrown around.
Right.
So yeah.
All right, we've got some comments from some listeners here. Jeb just wanted to share an update that he got a few of our recommendations installed, and he's very pleased. He had only experienced one movie in Atmos Cinema in London, and the thing he appreciated most was how the sound didn't draw attention to itself. It was very enveloping but not distracting, and he's happy to report he's now getting that experience at home. He's got 5 Emotiva speakers, an SVS PB13 Ultra, 4 Focal Little Birds, and a Denon X4300H thanks to our suggestions. And now the only maddening thing is that when he goes out, the movie theater doesn't sound nearly as good as his home system. Dude, okay, so after Black Panther, I sort of decided I was never going to the movie theater again.
Yeah.
Now, and it wasn't that there was a lady that was about 15 rows away, across the theater that I could still hear talking. And she talked for a good portion of the beginning of the movie.
Yep.
It wasn't just that. It wasn't that occasionally somebody would turn their phone on and they would like cover it so
yeah.
Like,
they think
dude,
they're not bothering anyone.
You're not bothering anybody. There's like a flashlight going off. I mean, like, oh, but it's in dim mode. Yeah, dim mode. Still, if you can see it, it's putting light on your face, and your face just lit up. You idiot. It's not just that. What really bothered me was that there was no possible way to properly plan your bathroom breaks without having to miss part of that movie or be uncomfortable for the last third of it.
Yeah, you cannot pause a movie at the cinema. No.
Well, I mean, because the movie starts, right? And not even the movie. The time of the movie starts, and there's still commercials going on.
Yeah.
And then there's previews, right? And I'm like, I've seen this preview. The movie's going to start very soon. I'm going to hit the bathroom one more time. So I go hit the bathroom. I come back just at the end of the Jurassic Park preview. I've already seen Jurassic Park previews like 10 times online. And plus, the movie looks like garbage anyways. So I come back, and just in time, the movie starts. And still the last third of the movie, I'm like, I am dying. I just want to go to the bathroom. I just want this movie to end so I can go to the bathroom. I did not drink an inordinate amount of soda. I did not do that. I was very careful with my soda consumption. And still, so it doesn't sound any better than my house.
Nope.
It doesn't look any better than my house. And there's a bunch of people that bother me, and there's no beer. So I think I'm done with movie theaters. I really felt like, and honestly, I say this, I really felt like it was important to go see Black Panther because of what it represented to Hollywood, which was, you've been saying for, however many millions of years that you can't make a movie with an all-black cast and have it be a big budget blockbuster. And I wanted to say to Hollywood, with my dollars, that I don't agree with that. That I will watch a movie, I don't care the color or the gender or the nationality of the protagonist. I will go see the movie if it's a good movie. Doesn't matter. So I wanted to say that. But at the same time, I don't ever want to go to the movie theater again. I'm just done. And my son was just telling me, he goes, well, he wants to go see Ready Player One for his birthday. I'm like, well, I'll send you. I'll give you some money. You go sit in the theater. I'm going to sit in the lobby. All right. Dude, I already said that. Jim says that forums aren't all bad. For some reason, his Denon X3300W stopped outputting a video signal on either of his HDMI outputs. He did a factory reset, completely unplugged all cables, and triple-checked everything. Tried replacing the HDMI cables and tried a different wall outlet, nothing. But in the last-ditch effort, he tried the Denon's owner troubleshooting FAQ on AVS Forum, and they suggested leaving the X3300 unplugged for several hours and then trying it again. He did, and it worked. He just thought he'd share. Well, that's not the same thing as the forums. I mean, that is a FAQ, which is posted on the forum, but it's not like you went to the forum, asked a question, and somebody gave you a direct answer. That's where we lose the forums. Is at the forums that you ask a question and what you get is, do a search, idiot.
Yes.
15 times.
Very common.
So That's what we don't do around here. We don't say, go listen to episode 122, dummy. We already talked about Odyssey.
And
like
some people, I want
times.
to address that. Some people worry about that because we get messages all the time with people saying, someone probably already asked this, but I can't find it in your previous. I'm like, do not worry about that.
Yeah.
You ask your question, we'll answer it on the podcast. Simple as that.
And we've heard this a number of times from listeners too, that they've listened to the podcast for a year, and it wasn't until they heard us talk about something the fourth time
That's right.
that it finally clicked in.
Yep.
So it's very important that we repeat ourselves, because it helps with learning. So it's fine. Ask your questions. We will answer them. Speaking of questions, let's get to them.
Mm-hmm.
Mark previously had his surround speakers in the rear corners of his room, and we said that in his setup we thought there wasn't much benefit in adding surround back speakers, just stick with 5.1. But he rearranged his layout a bit and managed to create about 5 feet of space behind his couch with the surround speakers directly to either side. He added surround backs, and he really likes the results, particularly for actual 7.1 soundtracks on Blu-ray. Okie dokie. And there's a picture of a dog.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not seeing a picture of a dog and you're watching us on YouTube, you're watching the behind the scenes one. So wait for the other one to come out, then you'll see the picture of the dog. So there's a picture of a dog. That dog looks healthy. Thank you very much. I'm so tired of fat dogs. That dog looks healthy and also looks very interested in that duck and or swan, whatever that is. He's using a Denon 4520, which does not have Atmos. When the content is 5.1, he uses its Pro Logic 2X up mixer. 7.1 plays in 7.1, of course, and any Atmos or DTS-X tracks show up as either Dolby True HD or DTS HD Master Audio, respectively. If he were to get a newer Atmos receiver, would he hear any difference, considering he doesn't have any overhead speakers and doesn't intend to add any yet? 7.1 with no overheads is still listed as Dolby Atmos compatible speaker layout, so will it make actual Atmos soundtracks something different than the Dolby True HD version he's getting now? And will the Dolby Surround Up Mixer sound any different upmixing 5.1 content versus the Dolby Pro Logic 2X? I think the simple answer to your question is no. There's not going to be enough of a difference for you to really notice it. But it's not going to be a zero difference. Anything that is already mixed in 7.1 or Atmos, because the base layer is still Dolby True HD or Dolby True HD.
Yeah, it's Dolby True HD with Atmos extensions on top of it.
So those differences are going to be probably non-existent, except if they did a remix because on some movie that you're watching. So if you had a version that was just straight 7.1 and then you got like the new one that had Atmos, there could be a remixing going on there. If there was, then that could explain a difference. The surround up mixer has had some good. I mean, I don't think it's exactly the same as Dolby Pro Logic 2X. You're not going to, but I don't think the differences are going to be maybe even noticeable. I think they could be measurable and they could be quantifiable through the algorithms, but I don't know how much you're going to hear in the difference, and I imagine the difference, it will be negligible to your ears. So if there's no difference in the Odyssey, if you're going to get Odyssey Multi-Q XT32, and that's what you have now, which I'm not sure what the 45.
I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty sure that's what that 45
that's what I thought
had.
too.
Yep.
Then I really don't see any reason for you to upgrade.
Yeah, unless you are, like the addition of overhead speakers is shortly away. He's not going to do it right now, but it's coming soon. That could be a reason. I suppose the objective answer is there could be a difference. For example, you're listening to an actual Dolby Atmos soundtrack. You're using 7 speakers. That is a Dolby Atmos compatible speaker layout in that if you say I have 7.1, it'll still activate the Dolby Atmos listening mode, not some type of upmixer, and it won't say Dolby True HD on there either. It'll actually say Dolby Atmos on the front. Atmos, And if there are audio objects in the floor layer, those could potentially be slightly differently steered than just listening to the straight Dolby True HD version.
What Rob is trying to say in a long, long way is that basically what I said is right.
Yeah, but how whether you're going to know, I mean, maybe if you had a direct A/B comparison that you could instantly switch between, it's it's conceivable there could be some small differences, but noticeable to just like, oh, clearly everything I hear in Atmos sounds different than True HD used to. No, nothing like that. Nothing on that type of scale. So, yeah. And yeah, Dolby Surround Up Mixer instead of Pro Logic 2X. I mean, yeah, similar thing. If you could compare them A/B, there might be some slight differences, but you actually noticing it, highly unlikely.
I agree. Mark's house has had more than one addition since its original 1947 construction. In the 1950s, a den, dining room, and laundry room were all added as extensions off the original kitchen. The original house was built above a crawl space. The additions were put on a concrete slab. The exterior walls of that addition appear to be stucco on the outside, outer boards beneath the stucco, 4-inch studs with no insulation, and then probably original lath and plaster. Or lath? It's lath.
Lath and plaster, yeah.
Lath and plaster. Although the interior walls are now drywall. In 2007, another addition for a 15 by 15 bedroom with an ensuite bathroom and a walk-in closet was also constructed on the concrete slab, but it was done on the cheap. Clearly, he says. Nothing was done to what used to be the exterior wall of the den. Instead, the 2x4s were just slapped directly onto the stucco, no insulation, and a single layer of drywall for the new interior wall. So they basically just put they built a wall on top of the exterior wall and then put drywall on top of that with no insulation.
Like just framing.
That's just framing. And that's actually not totally, I mean...
No, I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's not
I think that's
really
probably what I would have done too, to be
it.
honest with you. I mean,
that's the cheap and easy way to do it. It means no demo.
That's right, no demo. And there's no reason to demo it anyways, really. I mean, what's the reason for demoing it other than so that... Well,
to tie it in properly and to not have all the dirt from what used to be the exterior stucco wall inside your walls now.
Yeah. Okay. So we're looking at this. I guess if you're on YouTube, you'll be seeing the plans. The plans of this thing. Furthermore, there's a door from the den to the new bedroom. Appears to have been an afterthought. There's a small step down from the den into the bedroom. And the door has been inserted on the bedroom side, meaning that the pre-hung door frame leaves a gap above it on the den side. That's weird. The gap has been hastily filled with spray foam and covered with a wood board. And the seal around the rest of the door frame is sloppy and poor. Okay.
Yeah. So this this is not master craftsman type of installation and construction that's been done here. On the
you got what you paid for with this handyman that you hired to do this, though. That's for sure.
Well, he didn't do that. This was done.
Well, I'm saying whoever paid for this got what they paid for, which was probably very, very cheap. All right. Mark wants to know what you think you should do without getting into major demo and construction. Right now, if he taps on the walls, they resonate like crazy. But even with that, most of the sound leakage seems to be going through that poorly insulated door. He did contact soundproofing company, but without any major construction plans, all they could offer him was to sell him ways to seal the door. He could just replace the door and try to better seal around the frame. He could beef up the existing door by adding green glue and a layer on top of the door. Okay, he'd be willing to maybe get a whole new pre-hung door and redo the whole door frame. What do we think he should do? And do we think he should try to move the door to the den side? And should he do anything to try to beef up the walls, like maybe adding green glue, and a second layer of drywall to the wall between the den and his bedroom? So let me see if I understand this problem. He's saying that most of the problems with his sound leakage is coming through that door, is what he thinks.
Yeah, so basically his theater is set up in this bedroom. He plays something in the theater. He then goes into the den, and if he walks back and forth along the party wall between the den and the bedroom, he notices that it's clearly louder at the door than anywhere else along the wall. So he's like, even with this hollow wall that doesn't have any insulation in it, it seems as though most of the sound leakage is coming through that poorly installed door, which is not a huge shock given that there's basically air gaps all around this door.
Yeah.
You might as well have an opening.
Right.
You got to take out what's there. You have to take out what's there.
Okay. I mean, this is really
keeping that frame and just putting some kind of new door into that existing frame. The frame is the problem, so you've got to take that door frame out and redo that.
Well, I think at this point, if you're going to do that, you're going to have to start thinking about how you want this to be finished. And I think at that point, you need to start talking to somebody who actually knows what they're talking about. Like
Yeah.
we know a lot about AV, all right? I think that the way this thing is sort of set up, I've got like you don't have to pay somebody to do this yet. But what you can do is call a contractor, somebody who's a friend, or like I've got friends of friends who will come and give you an estimate. Estimates are free. And you come in and you say, listen, this is my problem. You tell them what the problem is. You show them that god-awful door situation that you've got going on and see what they say. Because it seems to me that this is a situation that should be handled. It could be handled in any number of ways. First, I think that the door should not be below the step.
No, it should be on that step that's on the den side.
Yes, it should be on the
That's where it
den
ought to
side.
be. Yeah.
So I think that's what your contractor is going to say. Then at that point,
Honestly, if they don't, I wouldn't hire them.
yeah. So at that point, then you start talking about like how much it's going to cost to do that. What else can we do without getting too much into this? Like how much is it going to cost to tear down that drywall and put it back up? Because if you can tear down the drywall,
insulate in the bays of the walls and that.
If you can just tear it down, insulate it, and put it back up and paint, you're going to find that that's going to make a huge difference as well. So it really, at this point, I would really start talking to contractors and, contractors who have good ratings maybe and aren't found hanging outside the Home Depot parking lot or whatever. So that, because this looks like it was done by somebody who just bought a door and then shoved it in there and then.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree with thee. This looks like an afterthought because this is not how you install a door properly. That's not.
But you are going to. I mean, getting away from having air go through that door is not going to be an issue. It's not going to be possible either because you have to have some sort of air return. And air returns generally go through the door.
Yeah, I don't know what the air return is right now because I mean it's blocking the bottom of the door right now. You don't have much of an air gap down there at the moment.
It's got to have something. I mean, air's got to get
who
in
knows?
and out
I mean, was this addition honestly done up to code? I have my doubts.
Yeah. I would be talking to a contractor if I were you. That would be my suggestion.
I mean, unfortunately, you might discover that to do it properly is going to mean some demolition and a fairly large construction to actually do it right. I think that's what he's trying to avoid.
But the upside is if that ends up happening, you can run wires for all sorts of speakers.
Yes. The other upside is, maybe you don't die from carbon monoxide poisoning like you might right now if ventilation isn't done properly, that type of thing. Or horrible mold in the attic of this space if it's, again, not ventilated properly. There's could be much larger issues in the future if this really wasn't done properly, and I have my doubts given what we're looking at. But yeah, if all you got to do is the door, you got to take out what's there, install a proper casing. I mean, it looks as though they simply didn't know how to install the door on the bedroom side, like install the casing on the bedroom side to take care of what they had just done. So yeah, that needs to be ripped out, done properly, and if you can at least put a solid core door in there. That's not that much more money, and then you'll probably discover that now the wall is the weak part of your system, and you'll probably want to tear down the drywall and insulate. But you can do that at a later time, perhaps.
And I mean, putting up a layer of green glue and another layer of drywall on top of your existing wall will increase its mass, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to solve your problem.
Yeah, because if the issue right now is sound traveling through some sort of airway, and within the bays of your wall, that's still going to exist. You haven't done anything to that. So, yeah. I wouldn't spend my money there.
I would not either. I wouldn't put drywall on the door either. The green glue.
No. I mean, again, any of the ideas that don't involve taking down the door that's there, don't do that. Take down the door that's there.
Yeah. Chris says thank you for answering his $200 subwoofer question for his bedroom. He's strongly leaning towards a BIC F12. Did take a look at the Monoprice 4723 that Brent Butterworth recommended via the Wirecutter. The specs on the Monoprice website have its frequent response listed as 50 to 250 hertz. That seems a bit odd, especially since they include Brent's measurements that indicate almost 100 dB of output down at 25 and about 90 dB output at 20 hertz. Thoughts? My thoughts are that you were reading the wrong thing. That sounds 50 to 250 hertz. Sounds like the
crossover setting.
Yeah, crossover settings.
The crossover setting is right there below it, and it lists 50 to 150 hertz.
Oh.
So
I think it's a typo.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is if you really go strictly by the measurements that Brent Butterworth provided, if you go up a ways, like into the 60 and 80 hertz measurements, it is 3 decibels quieter at 50 hertz versus how loud it is at 80 and 60. So maybe they're just being way more honest than most other websites would be, because like this is the minus 3 dB point. I'm like, well, most subwoofers don't go by taking the loudest and then finding where it's -3. They kind of
take the average and 3 dB up and 3 dB down.
That's right. Like that. So it looks as though they kind of just took what was loudest, which is at 80 and 60 hertz, and then went, where is it 3 decibels quieter than that? And that's at 50 hertz. But it still has significant output happening at 25 hertz. It's definitely much, much quieter down at 20. It's really not a 20 hertz sub. But it is legitimately like a 28 hertz sub, and then it's still putting out a good amount at 25. So, basically, they're being maybe too honest or unusually honest or not using an average like everybody else is.
Right.
But thankfully, they have Brent Butterworth's measurements right there, so you can see that, and I would trust those.
Yeah. So he's been giving his hand-me-down equipment to his sister, so now she'll have some Dayton speakers and whichever subwoofer he decides to part with. She could use a new AV receiver, though. What do we think of the Integra DTR 20.3 that Accessories for Less is now selling for $150? He likes that it has Odyssey and THX Select certification. The Denon S530 is also available for $150. What would we recommend and why? So the Odyssey is actually 2 EQ, right?
It is actually 2 EQ in that Integra, and that is the version that does not touch the subwoofer at all.
Right.
Doesn't touch it.
That Odyssey is like the Onkyo talked to Odyssey and said, we're going to give you this much processing power. How much can you do with it? And they're like, almost nothing. We're like, we'll take it. We'll take the almost nothing.
Yes, and Integra, by the way, is a sister company of Onkyo. It's kind of their custom installer brand most often.
THX certification is worth exactly nothing in your case, unless your sister is driving some. I mean, he's got Dayton audio speakers, right? So, or Dayton speakers. So, the Select certification doesn't mean anything to me.
No.
I gotta believe that there's the Denon S530. That seems like it's pretty old, huh?
It's no, it's not that old, but it doesn't have Odyssey of any kind. There's no auto correction in that one whatsoever.
Oh.
So you say, what would we recommend and why? I would recommend the Yamaha RXV 383, which unfortunately is a bit more expensive. It's $200.
Woo!
So
it
looks like he was going for $150, but this is $200. But why do I recommend that? Well, it's completely up to date. The Integra DTR 20.3 is back at HDMI 1.4. Probably doesn't matter for your sister's TV right now, but I get this feeling that she's not upgrading on a regular basis. So whatever AV receiver she gets right now is probably going to be there for a while, and she might get a 4K TV. If she does, the Yamaha RXV 383 is ready for it. It even passes Dolby Vision. So it's right up to date as far as all of its HDMI spec goes. And in the very low price ranges, if you're going to use an auto correction program, I like Waipow the best for the really low price points, because at least it does a non-damaging job, which is about as much as you can ask for. So I would spend a little bit more. That's the one I would get, because it's feature complete for today's modern connections.
What about this Denon AVR S720W?
S720? Oh yeah, that. How much is that one though?
$250.
$250. Well, there you go.
It's $100 more than what you're looking at, but it gets you Odyssey. It has the
that's
editor
multi
app.
EQ, just the regular EQ.
That's right. It's got the editor app that you can use on there, and all sorts of good stuff. So,
yep.
Yeah.
So both of our recommendations end up being more expensive, but there's reason for it. They're more feature complete.
Yeah. Tyson. First, Tyson wanted to share some updates for his living room setup. He went with several of our recommendations: HSU horn-loaded speakers hidden in the existing entertainment unit, and an HSU VTF 15H Mark II subwoofer centered just below his new LG C7 65-inch OLED TV.
Yeah, so I want to remind people who are watching YouTube, I've got the old pictures that he sent in before. So he has this built-in entertainment unit in quite a large and open and tile-floored living room. So there were a number of things that we were looking to compensate for and keep in mind. So yeah, he's got his new setup. He's put a VTF 15H Mark II below a 65-inch OLED, built it all in, and covered things up with speaker grill cloth. It looks very slick.
It does look very slick. I lost my place. Klipsch in-ceiling speakers that perfectly fit the openings of the old in-ceiling speakers that got painted over by the previous owner. And
yeah, we remember those painted over speakers.
Yeah.
Those were some dead speakers.
Those were dead speakers. And the KEF T-Series on-wall speakers for the surrounds. He and his family are really happy with how it sounds, and his wife is happy that it is all visually unobtrusive. So, yeah.
Yep.
That's good. As we might recall, he still wants a dedicated theater, and he managed to come up with a compromise with his wife where she is going to give up what was going to be her craft room for him to use as a dedicated theater room. He wants to... How is that a compromise? That sounds like she just gave up and you get what you want. And how did you negotiate that? Because I would like some tips. Thank you very much. He wants to install an acoustically transparent screen, and he likes the HSU speakers that he's using in the living room so much that he'd like to use them in the theater as well. He's been working on the plans for his theater, and he wound up with 18 inches of space behind the acoustically transparent screen. The HSU speakers are 10 inches deep, but they are rear-ported. He read somewhere that the fronts of the speakers ought to be at least 6 inches from the back of the acoustically transparent screen in order to avoid any timbre shift. Is this true?
So for the perforated and micro-perforated screens, yes. But for the woven screens, no. Most of them say you really only need 2 inches from the woven screens.
Yeah, and you're going to take the grills off anyways, so you're going to end up with, essentially the grill would be what would normally be the grill is going to be this acoustically transparent screen.
Yeah. So by all the information that I've ever had on woven screens, you can put the front of these speakers a little bit closer, 4 inches closer than you would to a perforated or a micro perforated screen. You get 4 more inches you got out of that.
So he says if this is true, which it is not, that will only leave him 2 inches from the backs of the speakers to the physical front wall. Will that be a problem for the rear ports of the speakers should he plug the ports? I have to sneeze.
So what I would say to this is, so now you're going to have 6 inches because we got you an extra
6
4
inches is fine.
6 inches is fine on its own, but since you're not going to see the front wall, it's going to be covered by your acoustically transparent screen. I would put some 2-inch thick insulation
just right behind the speakers, yeah.
Over all of that physical front wall. Then you'll have a 4-inch air gap between that 2 inches of insulation. I mean, it can just be the raw, bare insulation. You're not going to see it. It's covered by the screen. So 2-inch thick insulation, 4-inch air gap, then the ports of the speakers, totally fine. And then 2 inches.
And just in general, I never recommend plugging ports for any reason. I mean, unless it is in the user manual and it says if you are close to a barrier like a wall, then plug the ports with some socks.
Or some speakers actually come with optional port plugs.
Mostly subwoofers do, but occasionally other speakers will as well.
Yeah.
I never recommend plugging ports, and that is another recommendation from a forum, and don't tell me it's not because of this. So, in my opinion, don't ever plug ports unless it specifically says so. You are taking a speaker, how it's designed, and changing its design because of something some rando said on AVS. So don't believe the rando, believe the person who designed the speaker. All right. Randy is upgrading his basement theater and needs new subs to replace his 12-inch JBL. He wants to end up... you know what? I'm going to go back to this last question. Sorry. We're going to go back to this last question. Okay, so one of the things he said, he likes these speakers so much in his big room that he wants to have them in his smaller room.
Yes.
I want to challenge you, sir, because I don't think that's a good idea. This is why I don't think it's a good idea. We suggested those speakers for a lot of reasons, and most of them were to overcome some of the limitations of your room. This is an opportunity for you to have a completely different, in some ways, sounding home theater in a different space. Do not pass up that opportunity of going out and listening to some speakers, testing them in your room once you get it set up, and then deciding for yourself whether or not these the HSUs are in fact what you want when you have the opportunity to maybe get something different. So,
possibly. I mean, the counter to that I would say is there's absolutely nothing wrong with using those HSU speakers in your dedicated theater because they're also fine for that.
I understand, yes, but in your dedicated home theater, you're going to have the ability to put, first of all, you're going to be able to insulate the entire front wall if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be able to put room treatments in there.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be able to do a lot of stuff in there. You have proper placement of subwoofers and everything else. You're going to be able to do a lot of stuff in there that you can't do in your main theater. And one of the reasons we chose horn loadeds and stuff for your main theater is because of placement and all that sort of thing.
And we needed the efficiency in the big theater, in the big living room, that is. Yeah.
In the big living room, which you will not need in the small room. So you are not limited by the room. So why limit your speakers to just the one speaker that you heard that you liked? Let's listen to some more. There's other speakers out there that you can have shipped to your house for free and you can test out. I would suggest, since you're already at someplace you can watch movies right now, you get that false wall set up, you get your room set up, you get the insulation all set up, you get the room treatments all set up, you get the subwoofers all set up, then you start auditioning speakers. Why not? This is
that's true.
This is a chance to do it absolutely perfectly. So why not take this opportunity? Why just say, hey, I like these, I'm going to stick with these? What, man, you only like one kind of cheese? This guy might actually like one kind of cheese. Is that the case? I'm sorry, sir. There's better cheeses out there than the one that you like. So try some other things and just see if perhaps your palette can be expanded by some of these other options.
You could borrow your HSU speakers from your living room temporarily and directly A/B compare some other speakers if you wanted to.
You may find that in this other room, you're going to like something different a lot more.
Possibly.
I want to say I guarantee it, but I would be very
surprised. Those HSU speakers are good, so he might end up with those, which is also completely fine.
He might. No. I bet he ends up with something different, but we'll see. Randy has upgraded his basement theater and needs new subs to replace his 12-inch JBL. Yes, he does. He wants to end up with dual subs. We'll probably have to buy them one at a time. The room is 3,500 cubic feet, and the budget is $1,000 per sub. What should he buy? 3,500 cubic feet. $1,000 per sub.
So $2,000 total he could spend.
Oh, this is a bigger room than I'm thinking of this.
Well, 3,500 cubic feet that is a large room, but it is not an enormous room. So 3,500 cubic feet.
I feel like this room is just begging for cylinder subs, man. Look at this thing.
That could be a very viable option.
I think it's begging for cylinder subs. I like it. I feel like it's open on the left to something, though. It's hard to see it. Is that just a window over there?
It's just a window over there. Yeah. He didn't make note of any openings, and I don't see any in the photos, although that doesn't necessarily mean there aren't any. But, yeah.
So this 2000 series subs would be pushing it in this room.
PC 2000s?
Yeah, the PC 2000s.
Oh, 3,500 cubic feet in their ported mode. They should be sufficient for that. A pair of them?
I mean, those are what as a pair? They're not $2,000.
No, they're under $2,000. Yeah, they're $800 a piece, and then you get a $50 or $100 discount for getting two of them.
You can almost get those right now. If you're willing to spend $1,000 for one sub, you could get both of those, like a month from now or 2 months from now. I kind of think that. I like that. That's my suggestion.
Yeah, I certainly won't disagree with the PC 2000s. So his question coming up is about placement, and I was a little bit forward-looking on that. So I wanted to offer a couple of suggestions in case these do end up being more sort of like out in the room where they're visible, or beside his couch where they might act as end tables. Because right now, he's got his single JBL to the right of his couch, leaving a very small walkway between the sub and his couch. And it looks like he's stacked some kind of box on top of that sub to basically turn it into a little table. And then to the left of his couch, he's got another box over there, or maybe that's a speaker. I'm not sure. It could be a speaker, but in the image, he's got some kind of box to the left of his couch as well. So I was thinking you might want to go for some subwoofers that could go directly to the sides of your couch, act as your end tables, maybe act as your surround speaker stands, if that's what those boxes I'm looking at are. So one I really like for that is Outlaws. They're Ultra X12, which would be sufficient for this room size. when you have a pair of them. And one of the reasons I like it is it's fully down firing. Its driver and its ports are both facing down, and the rest of it is kind of smooth and black. The top actually has a fairly nice finish to it. So if you wanted to use it as an end table, it's a really good design because you don't have anything unsightly anywhere on the outside of that. Everything is on the bottom. Another one you could go for is Power Sound Audio's P15, or the 15V, the vented 15. Now that one does have its port on the back, and the overall look of it is like that textured black.
Ugh.
It's not the smooth black of the Outlaw. So the Outlaw, I think, looks a little nicer, but if you're like super concerned, if you want crazy loud output, the 15V from Power Sound could be an option. But yeah, I'll throw those out there. They're both certainly affordable.
Yeah, if he's looking for speaker stands, though, I think the cylinder subs work pretty well as speaker stands.
That's true.
They have that wood top on them.
Yep, that's true.
And on either side of the couch, too, would be fine. We're going to get to that in a second. So for placement, his back wall has cabinets that go wall to wall, which you can see a picture of on our finished YouTube video. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't have doesn't have much space on the front for a sub either. So diagonally opposite corners isn't a good option for him. He was thinking he could put one subwoofer on each side wall, although they need to be diagonally offset a bit, or he could put one sub directly on each side of his couch. He's sitting 12 feet from his 120-inch screen, so just slightly in front of the middle of the room. Which placement do we think would work best? Well, the middle of the side wall slightly offset diagonally is perfectly fine.
Oh,
That's
yes.
kind of how mine works.
Yep,
so
very much so.
If that's an option, I would first of all, if you've only got two placement options, the answer is try them both.
Yes.
I think that you're probably fine doing the first one, which is the diagonally opposite, whatever. But
yeah, the cylinders taking up less floor space, that very well might be your best option.
Right. And what is that at the front of that room? There's cabinets underneath that speaker, that center speaker, right? That's not just a shelf. It's very hard to see things.
I'm not exactly sure. I mean, the center speaker is sitting on something. I imagine there's like equipment within there.
Yeah, that's what I think it is too. Okay, so
yeah. But he's got his computer over to the right. He's got what looks like maybe a closet door on the right as well, so that corner is kind of taken up. I see what he means. The left looks like it's kind of open, but it's got the windows over there, and there's no diagonally opposite in the rear of the right. So yeah, side walls. Yeah, if you can go side walls and you want to take up as little floor space, you get the cylinders. If you do want to try directly to either side of your couch, basically as end tables, then yeah, the Outlaws might be a really good choice.
Okay. Neil has Martin Logan. What time is it? Wow, 9:56. It's only been 56 minutes, not even that, of this podcast, and I'm already slurring my words. Not from alcohol. Gave that up for Lent too. Neil has a Martin Logan MLT2 compact 5.1 speaker system in his theater room. The included subwoofer is a 120 watt 10-inch model that's only spec'd down at 37 hertz at -3 dB. During the SVS President's Day sale, he picked up an SB12 NSD for $399. He wonders, will it be better to use the SB NSD alone, or should he try to pair it with the Martin Logan sub? Will the difference in transient response between the two cause muddiness, or are there other issues to consider? The room is 9x12 and only cares about one seat. If you only care about one seat, I just use the SVS.
Agreed.
If you only care about one seat. The reason being is this, okay. We've talked about this a number of times before, but it bears repeating. When you're using two subs that are mismatched as far as how low they can go, what you have is two subs that are playing together to give you an even bass response down to wherever the one sub cuts out. Then below that sub is either adding nothing or adding distortion.
Yeah.
So that means you now have a single sub that is not optimally placed for giving you great bass at your seat, and perhaps a lot of distortion that's being added to the room as well. Yeah. So if you only care about one sub or one seat, then find the good spot for your sub for that one seat and go with that, with the single sub that is a better performer.
Yeah, this is an example of a pretty significant mismatch between
Yeah.
two subs. This isn't a hertz or two. This isn't very close in maximum output and only at the
Right.
absolute.
They both get down to 20 hertz, but one of them gets down to 18. You know,
Right.
Where you're like, okay, come on, no one cares.
Yeah, no, this is a significant. You got basically an entire octave of bass that your current sub is not producing, and your new sub is.
Right.
Yeah, I would, given that you really only care about the one seat, you do a subwoofer crawl, and you use only the SB12 NSD, and you leave it there. You don't attempt to use the other Martin Logan sub as a dual in this instance.
That'll be a good one to put in your office.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Jay. Oh, we're burning through these questions. Jay wrote us a few weeks ago when he was looking for subwoofer suggestions. As a reminder, he has a 25 by 20 by 8 foot, theater area that is open to his kitchen, which means it's a heck of a lot bigger than that. But he was trying to limit the size of the subwoofer so his wife wouldn't get mad at him. We warned him to construct a cardboard model out of the Klipsch R115SW he was considering, and we recommended either the SVS PC12 Plus cylinder or one of the other sealed subs he was considering, the HSU ULS 15 Mark II. His max budget was $1,500. So we even mentioned that he could afford 2 of the HSU ULS 15s, but his wife would kick him out of the house if he bought 2 large subs, and she was tempted to reach across the internet and slap us for suggesting he do so. Bring it, woman. Come on. Bring it. I got 3 boys, and I've been married for what year is it? 18? I've been married for 17 years. You got slap me. I won't even feel it. Anyway, so that's out. ABT was having a big sale, and they carry both Klipsch and SVS, so he took some time to visit their retail location. After getting a look and listening to the models they had in stock, he wound up purchasing the SVS SB13 Ultra.
Mm-hmm.
The sale price meant the current SB4000 model that replaced the SB13 Ultra in the SVS's lineup would have cost about $500 more. So just to be sure, it's not that much better than SB13 Ultra, is it? No, probably not really all that much better.
No. I mean, the SB, the 4000 series did get some nice and noticeable feature upgrades. You know, it got the...
but as far as what you're going to experience base-wise...
Right.
Yeah,
no, far more similar than different. So, yeah, it did get a little bit of a beefed up amplifier. It got a driver redesign. The main thing was the features, though. They added the front controls, front display controls, the remote control that you can use, that type of thing. So it's got some nice little feature upgrades. But in terms of output and extension, the 4000 reaches a teensy bit lower. It plays a teensy bit louder. They kept the price basically the same. But, you have a fantastic sub that was one of the ones that we mentioned, or I mentioned the SB4000 because that was the current lineup. It just squeaked into his budget, but that was the reason why I thought the HSU might be a better choice. It was a lot less expensive, and you wouldn't be giving up a ton of performance. But here, since you got it basically on clearance, you got the SVS for a price that's very close to the fully shipped price of the HSU. So no, you made out like a bandit. That's a fantastic choice.
So the SB13 Ultra is slightly smaller than the HSU ULS 15 Mark II, but the HSU would still be acceptable in terms of size. Mm-hmm. Since that was one of our top recommendations to him, do we think it would still be worth it to buy one to audition and compare it against the SB13 Ultra that he bought? Nope, I do not.
Nah, given that you would end up paying shipping to do that. I mean, if it was a free shipping both ways from HSU audition, then knock yourself out if you're just curious. But given that
I don't think you're going to notice any difference. Let's be honest.
Given that you would be out money in this instance, let us assure you, got a very good sub for your budget and for your room size and all the rest of it. The SB13 Ultra is a fantastic choice. Given that you got it for around $1,000, that's wonderful. Be happy with that. You're not missing out.
I don't even think that if you A-B them, you would hear a difference.
Highly unlikely.
I'll be honest with you. If you put them both in your room, you'd be like, I don't know. They both sound great. Yep. That's what you would come away with. Now I got to pay return shipping. This sucks. Yeah. So, let us save you some money there. Jason has a 5.2 system that he's itching to upgrade to 5.2.4 Atmos. The room is 17 feet long, 12 feet wide, and 7 feet 3 inches high. Must be a basement. And the seats are 7 feet away from the back wall and 10 feet from the physical front wall. He has a false wall though, so the screen and center speaker are 8 feet in front of him. He measured and his ears are 46 inches below the ceiling. All right, there's a lot of information there.
Yes.
His first thought was front and rear heights mounted to the front and back walls for 5.2.4, but up front, the framing of his false wall won't let him put speakers all the way up at the ceiling corner, so he's thinking top fronts mounted to the ceiling might be better. He also wonders if top rears mounted to the ceiling instead of up high on the rear wall would be better. He knows that this is all math and angles, and he trusts us with that more than himself, so what should we do? I think you should have top middles. Let me be honest with you.
Really?
I mean, I just do. I just do. I mean, I think that you should have top middles. I think top middles make more difference than top rears and top.
Well, they're more noticeable as being directly overhead.
And to me, I think that that's what people want out of Atmos. They want to notice that it's overhead.
Well, Jason can answer that for himself, because that is what some people want, and other people want the I know it's up there, but I'm not distracted by it. It's not super noticeable. So
right.
you might be able to answer what type of person you are, just because there's no wrong answer. If you're like, what I really want is to like notice that there's something directly above me, then I agree. Top middles will do that better. But if you're like, I just want to be able to steer sounds around me up there and have it be more enveloping but not distracting, then top fronts, top rears would be the way to go. So yeah, let's do the math. So the key is he knows how far his ears are from the ceiling.
Right.
You know that.
Which means you could do the triangle.
You can do your tangent. You can do your trigonometry. So the lowest that the speakers would be if they were front heights and rear heights is supposed to be a 30-degree elevation angle. That's as low as you would want them to be. Now, if you did that, that would put them 6 feet 7.5 inches in front of you, 6 feet 7.5 inches behind you. So
that's doable, but it's in the room. It's in the room from his screen, which is what, 8 feet from him.
Yeah,
right?
His screen is 8 feet in front of him. So even to get to the 30-degree elevation angle, the absolute lowest you would want to put these speakers as front heights and rear heights, they still end up on your ceiling.
Yeah.
That's what I'm driving at here. So the maximum elevation angle for top fronts and top rears is 55 degrees, and that would put the speakers 32 inches, so not quite 3 feet in front of and behind your seat. So
also
basically anywhere from 6.5 to 3 feet in front of and behind you is the range where top fronts and top rears would go. Now, the super easy thing to always be able to figure out is that a 45-degree elevation angle is pretty much where Dolby wants you to have them, and that'll be the exact same distance in front of and behind you as the distance from your ears to the ceiling.
Right.
So his distance from the ears to the ceiling is 46 inches, basically 4 feet. So if you put the speakers 4 feet in front of you and 4 feet behind you, they're exactly where Dolby would have you put them. So that's the super easy way to always know where to put your overhead speakers. Now, if you want to do top middles, of course, that changes a little bit. So in that instance, you might say have your front heights 5 or 6 feet in front of you, and then have the top middles either directly overhead or maybe just slightly behind you. So yeah, you have to decide whether you want very noticeably overhead or a little bit more diffuse.
Jay on Facebook. Jay is moving, and the new space where he'll set up his theater is pretty small. It's about 7 feet and by 14 feet, but it is open on one side to the rest of the house, so it's a jillion feet. He'll be about 6 feet from a 55-inch TV, and he already has a JBL LS-R305 self-powered monitors, but he feels like they're kind of big for his space, and he'd like the look of small wall-mounted speakers better. He was considering the Klipsch Quintet 5 speaker package along with dual Emotiva Basak subs, but he knows the Focal Little Birds would be a good option too. What do we think he should go for? NHT Super Zeros?
NHT Super Zeros, that'd be an option.
Like 120 a pop, I think, these days.
125 a pop, yeah. At
go.
the moment, they're sold out. They're waiting
they
for
long.
another container to come in. And that makes them only $50 per pair more expensive than the Little Birds.
Right.
The Little Birds are $100 each. And I do think those would be a very good choice. You know, Focal, I mean, only 6 feet away, so you're not worried about output capability.
Right.
That's no problem at all.
What do I have? I have the Birds or the Little Birds?
You have the Birds.
Not the Little Birds got to be smaller than these ginormous things.
They are.
So
they're still bigger than you would think, though. Like
the NHTs are slightly bigger than you think a little cube should be, but they're not big by any stretch of the imagination. Right. So if you're going for actually small, the NHTs might be worth it.
Yeah. So a couple other options. You could consider Kef's T series. So those are they're sort of the same height and width as a regular speaker, but front to back they're super paper thin. So if you want to do wall mount, you could consider the T series, although they're more expensive. You're getting up to, I think the smaller one, the T101s are about $200 each, and the larger 301s are like $250 each. So it's quite a bit more expensive than some of these other options we're talking about. I'm not a huge fan of those Klipsch quintets. I'm sure there are people who are. I don't begrudge anybody who loves them, but it wouldn't be my top recommendation. So that's just something. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about the subwoofer choice, because he was considering the Emotiva S8, the smallest BassX model.
Oh, I don't know about that.
And he was like, even that one might be a little bit large. I'm like, ugh. You have a completely open side. Plus, the S8, I mean, they claim it plays down to 28 hertz, but realistically, it's like 35, 36 hertz. It's I'm not a huge fan of that choice. He was like, the S10 might be a consideration. That'd be okay.
How many people are going to be sitting in this itty bitty theater? That's a real question. If it's just him, then we're back to
one sub might get you.
One sub might get you.
I mean, I was really tempted to suggest RSL's Speed Woofer 10.
Yeah.
Now it's a $400 sub, so it's twice the price of the S8. But maybe you only need one of them. And I mean, that one will genuinely get you down to 25 hertz at least. It's pretty good. Bic does have some less expensive subs too, but the F12 is much bigger, much bigger.
Right.
They do have that V1010, whatever that V1020. That one's smaller. That's a 10-incher that's smaller, and Brent Butterworth thought fairly high of it. But that one, I mean, again, like, what is it claiming here? 26 hertz? Yeah, right. I don't quite even buy that. That's what it's getting down to.
This is a really good. Unfortunately, this is a very good example of we're looking at the space that we're sitting and thinking about the space that we're sitting and not thinking about the rest of it. We know you're not going to fill the rest of this house up with bass.
No. You're going to pressurize.
And we completely agree that you're sitting close to speakers. Therefore, small speakers are very, very appropriate for this space. Totally agree there too. We're all on the same page there. But subwoofers are a different animal altogether. And a subwoofer that doesn't play low, it's you're literally throwing money away as far as
there's just stuff missing. It's just plain missing. It's not there.
It's not there. It's like playing a speaker that doesn't. It's like buying a speaker and spending less on it because it doesn't have a tweeter. You're just literally missing all the highs.
Yeah.
They're just not there. It's not like they're kind of there. They are not there at all.
Yeah.
They don't exist. So would you buy that speaker because you have a small room? No. You would buy a smaller speaker that has the proper frequency response, but it doesn't have the output because you're close to it. Well, you can do that with a sub too, but you're going to have to get a sub that actually plays down to where subwoofers actually play, which is going to require you to spend a little bit more money. And if it means that you can only buy one subwoofer now, because if you're thinking of two of these $200 subs, then you can afford a $400 sub.
That's right.
And then wait for a second one later on if you decide to. But in this clearly open concept space, a second subwoofer is probably not even appropriate anyways. Put the one good sub you have close to you so you can at least feel it a little bit, and then you can enjoy as good a bass as you're going to get in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, very realistically, you could go RSL all the way around because they have some nice compact speakers too. And they pay shipping both ways, so it's a free audition. So you could go for a 5.1 RSL speaker package. That would be very appropriate for this. All the way around. I could get behind that for sure.
Yeah. So the Klipsch Quintet and the Focal Little Birds both listed negative 3 dB points that are above 80 hertz. So what should he do in terms of setting the crossover and receiver? Should he still set that to 80 hertz, or should it be the listed negative 3 dB point of the speakers, which might be as high as 120, or maybe somewhere in between? Well, if you've got a receiver that sets its own, you might want to consider letting it do that.
Yep.
And most of them do these days. But yes, the answer is if your speakers are cutting off at 120 hertz and you set the crossover to 80 hertz, between 80 hertz and 120 hertz, you're going to have a big dip, which means you're going to be missing information that I
gap.
assume that you're going to want to hear.
Yes,
because that's what it's in there for a reason, and it's very audible stuff. I mean, it's not like, oh, that sub 20 hertz stuff, all you can really do is feel it. These are not people talking, but these are definitely musical instruments that are playing that you're not hearing. So,
yeah, the simple answer is position all your speakers in your sub.
Yeah.
Do your auto setup in your AV receiver, and then play a sweep.
Yeah.
And very quickly, when you play a bass sweep, you'll notice, like you play a 250 hertz down to 20 hertz bass sweep, right? You'll very quickly notice if right in that crossover region you got some kind of big old gap.
Yeah.
And if you do, then you need to raise the crossover frequency. So no, I know we always say set things to 80 hertz because that's the easy advice. So that's probably what he was thinking about. But no, you want to be able to play a sweep and have the sweep be continuous. You shouldn't really even notice where the transition from the speakers to the subwoofer is. It should just be one smooth, continuous sweep, as though it was one speaker playing that sweep. That's the goal.
Right. And, what you're giving up in having a small speaker is not just output. It's a lot of times it's extension, and that's a reasonable thing to expect. It's a very small speaker. It's not going to have a lot of bass, which means it is going to cut off earlier, and that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Doesn't mean the speaker's substandard or that they made it poorly. What they did is made it so that it played appropriately for its size and its driver configuration. So you do have to adjust your subwoofers. And yes, the rule of thumb is 80 hertz, but that's 80 hertz with normal speakers, and most speakers played, of normal size, bookshelves or tower speakers will play down cleanly to 80 hertz. Small satellite speakers do not. That's just a given. So he asked, could we recommend a good AV receiver that work well for 5.2 right now, but might maybe give him the option to expand to 5.2.2 later? The 3300 would probably from Denon would probably be my first recommendation
as the top choice.
But I would actually suggest maybe the 4300 because I know. But
$900.
I know what I'm saying here, but I want you to hear me out before you decide. You are going to go through the trouble of putting two speakers on your ceiling at some point. I think the elapsed time between you getting two speakers working and you deciding that you should have put another couple of speakers up there is about 3.5 seconds.
So that you can have 5.1.4 or 5.2.4?
Yeah. I think that the 0.4 is really where Atmos shines. And I mean, I know it's a lot of money. I know it's a lot of difference. It's fine if you decide not to do that. The 3300 has multi-2 XT32 in the whole 9 yards.
But it's $500. Maybe he doesn't want to spend that much. Given how he wanted to save money on the subs, maybe $500 is too much as well.
That's true.
Yeah. If you want to save some money, if the goal was to spend less than $500, I might point you to Denon's X1400H. It's $330 at Accessories for Less right now. So it's a pretty reasonable price. So that's Multi-Q XT. Doesn't have XT32, but it's XT, which is pretty darn good. Still tunes the subwoofers nicely. Still gives you dual subwoofer outputs if you do, in fact, want to have two subs. And that's got HEOS built in. It's got all the latest HDMI stuff, so it won't be any problem for any kind of 4K or HDR. It's a very nice unit for $330. All the features.
Do 5.2.2.
It'll do 5.2.2.
Does he need to buy an amp to make it work?
Nope. It's got 7 amplifiers built in, and that's where it tops out.
All right, then. For me, it would be worth it to go up to the 3300 for the XT32. Might not be that for you. And if you're going to go to the 33, I'd go to the 43. I know. Wow. I know. Believe me,
that escalated quickly.
It does escalate quickly, but I'm just thinking about you spending $330 now and then spending $600 later when you decide that you want two more speakers on your ceiling. So in the end, I just saved you $30. I mean, minimum. Anyways, Jake. Jake says he's new to the audiophile world. He bought a pair of JBL Studio 530 speakers off Craigslist, and the experience of hearing their imaging and accuracy for the first time has him so excited that he now wants to build an entire dedicated theater with a full Dolby Atmos setup. Can I just click on these speakers first? By the way, I'm also new to the audiophile world because I don't subscribe to that idea.
I think Jake actually means audiophile in the true sense of person who loves audio. I don't think he's meaning the esoteric, we believe in cable risers audiophile crowd. I think he's talking about the true meaning of the word. So that's quite all right. I applaud it.
Let me see here. These are self-powered speakers? Are they self-powered?
There is a professional self-powered version of them, but there's also a passive home version of the Studio 530s, which I think is what he has.
Okay, the one I'm looking at here is the professional one, it looks
like. Okay. I could be wrong. I could be wrong about that. But either way, they're like a horn-loaded, two-way design, ported on the back. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to click here. Hold on a second. I'm clicking.
They're good speakers.
I mean, they look good. Yeah. They look fine. I just want to see what they are. They're not showing me. JBL's website sucks. Okay. So you got him off Craigslist. He's very excited. All right. Yes. He wants to turn a single-car garage into a dedicated theater. He's going all in. So it appears to be a standard 12 by 22 foot size. Right now, there's an unfinished space with exposed beams, and it has no windows, even though the image he sent us has an example. Shows a window. So this picture that we're showing not what his.
That's not actually his. Yeah. So I think it's like a sort of housing development, where they're using similar designs between houses. So yeah, he's like, this is an example of the sort of the size of the garage he has, but his doesn't have any windows. So.
All right. The garage is separate, so he isn't too worried about the sound leakage between the theater and this house, but he would like to be able to crank things up without bothering his neighbors next door. So some level of soundproofing is a consideration. Closing the door is some level of soundproofing. So I think that's where we're going to go with that. He has $16,000 he can put towards building his theater. Let's go. About time somebody brought some real money to this podcast.
Jeez. Come on, man.
I'm so sick of answering these $200 subwoofer questions. No, I'm just joking. But that wasn't expected. This is the first time I'm reading these questions, so this is very exciting for me. He has $16,000 he can put towards building his theater. That has to cover the construction of the room plus all the equipment. Since he has never done this before, he needs a lot of advice. He's already very excited about the prospect of buying Emotiva amps and a pre-pro. Okay, we're gonna reel you back in here.
Yeah,
Sand Acoustic Sierra Row speakers and SVS PB16 Ultra and an Epson 50
in a single car garage. Yeah, that's
5040 UB with a silver ticket screen. Well, at least he's got the silver ticket screen. But when he told it all up, it only left him $2,000 for construction and acoustic treatment. So he figured he should ask us, what should he change? How can he best allocate his $16,000 budget? Well, let's start with everything.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is first of all, you're probably going to spend half of that on construction anyways. Let's just be honest. Yeah.
I mean, I targeted at least $6,000 to $7,000 for the room.
Yeah.
The room.
First of all, you're gonna have to close off that garage door, right? You can't have the garage door as being one of your walls because it's just gonna go blah 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 every time the subwoofer hits. It's gonna be a disaster. All right.
Yeah. I mean, I was. So I have a concern about the garage door because, let's say you do some soundproofing construction when you finish this place, all of a sudden your garage door becomes the weak link by far.
Yeah.
You're
gonna have to close that garage door, get rid of the garage door opener, and then build a wall.
I mean, you can put in like the barn door style so that you can still open it. Because, I mean, what if he doesn't stay in this place forever? You got to be able to put it back to being a garage. There's going to be people who want to park their car in there if he sells this place.
What kind of freak wants to park a car in the garage? Jeez. Not when they can have a home theater.
So you could convert it to like a barn door style, or there are, upgraded garage doors that are quite a bit thicker and don't rattle. But, if what you have is your standard sort of like aluminum or vinyl garage door, that's got to get replaced with something.
Yeah, I would just build a wall in front of it. Then clearly you're going to have to insulate everything, drywall. You know what would be really good, to be honest with you? I hate to say this, is you could build that wall in front of your garage door and use that as your HVAC thing. You know what I'm talking about? the dead vent thing, so that you could AC that part of it, and then I mean you're gonna have to have a garage door that's not gonna leak a bunch of heat or cold depending on what you're going for. So there's that to consider, but you could do that.
Yeah, so I wanted to dig into a little bit about HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, because you are attempting to turn what was built as so in Canada we call it a cold zone, because for us usually the outside is colder than the inside.
Sure, we don't know where this guy is. He could be in Canada, so go on.
Sure, but the real thing is you're trying to turn something that was not climate controlled into something that is climate controlled, and that is not a trivial task to do properly. Because I mean, if you're looking at the interior of this garage, there's no heating in there, there's no AC in there, there's no ventilation in there, because
he doesn't even have a window in his.
Yeah, he doesn't even have a window in his.
Which
so
I don't think you could do that.
The garage door and what I would hope are some vents in the rafters, but maybe that's not even there, because if it's just completely open, so there's things to consider. If you were to close in this garage, and you're going to want to do that if you're turning it into a theater, so we're talking about insulating in all the bays, I would recommend going for spray foam, because then you don't have to have vapor barrier. Doing vapor barrier properly is a pain. I prefer to avoid doing vapor barrier whenever possible. So I would go for spray foam, which is pretty easy. I mean, everything's wide open right now. So you're going to run all your wires. You're going to, beef up this place for electrical. You're going to run whatever is necessary for your HVAC. And then you're going to spray foam in all the walls. And I mean, what should he do soundproofing? A single layer of drywall? I mean, your neighbor's going to hear it, but it's not going to be crazy. They're going to hear the bass thumping.
How crazy are your neighbors? That's really the question is. And how late are you going to be in there? My home theater has a window. That window is, of course, exterior, and it is as close to my neighbor's house as it can possibly be. Like there is probably 6 feet between my house and his house. It may be a little bit more than that, but I'm facing up against his garage. So it has to go. I've asked him, I'm like, dude, I crank it up here. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm watching something, and I'll crank it, and I've got insulation in the walls, and I close the door, and that's what I do. If I get hot in here and it's winter, I'll open the window and I'll turn the volume down. I've never had a complaint from my neighbor. Now, he's a nice guy, and he just might not complain, but I've asked him, have you ever even heard anything? And he said no. So if you insulate this and it's got no window and you keep the door closed, chances are you're going to be probably fine.
Because I don't want you to needlessly overspend. I certainly wouldn't do the entire sound clips and hat channels and double drywall and green glue. I wouldn't go. I mean, maybe you do resilient channel and a single layer of drywall. That gives you some decoupling. Or maybe you do 2 layers of drywall. But the main thing is getting it insulated, and then finishing it. Given that the garage door, no matter what, is probably going to be your weakest link, you might be able to stop there. My concern, though, is what's going to become your attic space. Because now that you're climate controlling inside of this finished space, has to be a proper attic.
Right, which means you have to build a ceiling in here.
You have to build a ceiling, but it means above the finished ceiling, you have to have vents in the eaves, because your ceiling must remain, so the roof must remain the same temperature as the outside. That is what your attic needs to do. So you have to let outside air into the attic space. That's why you put a big, thick blanket of insulation above your ceiling, so that whatever the temperature is in your attic doesn't get into your climate-controlled zone. That's the whole idea. So there could be some construction that you need to do here. Now, installing vents in your eaves, not that difficult. You put up your drywall ceiling. It looks as though it's already got rafters in place. So you put up your drywall ceiling, you insulate above that ceiling so that your attic stays whatever the outside temperature is, and everything underneath the ceiling drywall is climate controlled. So getting the HVAC done might be your biggest expense, because you're not going to do that yourself.
He doesn't have a window. He can't even put a window unit in this thing if you wanted to.
I mean, it has to be ventilated. It has to be heated. It has to be air conditioned.
Right.
So that I would strongly recommend hiring a professional, so that it's
at this point, yes. Okay. So what you really need to do is stop shopping for gear.
Yeah.
You need to be shopping for contractors. and you need a contractor to come in here and tell you what you can do to turn this into a space that's livable for your home theater.
Yeah.
And, a reasonable amount of soundproofing, you need to get an estimate for that. And I have a feeling your $16,000 budget is going to shrink considerably.
Yes.
But let's put it this way. If they spend $10,000 putting this room together, what was it? 22 by something, right? 22 by 12?
12 by 20. I'm assuming. I mean, that's a standard single-car garage size. And
right.
Just counting the bays and assuming those are 16-inch.
And I'm thinking that you end up with a closet or something in there, or you do...
I mean, I might suggest doing a false wall, because the main reason I might suggest doing a false wall is you have the length, assuming this is your standard 22-foot length.
Right.
You have the length to, say, have a 2-foot gap between the physical front wall and your false wall.
Right.
You have an acoustically transparent screen that can basically be wall to wall. I mean, I would go for a 10-foot wide screen. That's a 135-inch diagonal screen. I'd go for a 10-foot wide screen in here, and have all your speakers behind that screen. And then you sit 11 or 12 feet away from that, and you still got 8 feet behind you. You could put a second row.
Well, I think he's going to end up losing some of that space to this garage situation, the door situation. So you may end up not being able to put a wall right next to that. If he ends up keeping it as a garage door, which he probably should, should probably keep the garage door there so that if he ends up selling the house, he can knock down that wall and strip everything out if they want to, and then turn it back into a garage if they so desire. So I think you're going to end up losing a little bit of that space. But let's say that you end up with an interior space of 20 feet before, you lose 2 feet just with drywall and building stuff out and everything else. Okay. Let's say you end up with 20 feet inside.
Sure.
20 by 12, we're going to be able to completely outfit this place with a very good theater system for $6,000.
You could.
I don't see that being an issue. So I don't want you to freak out that you've already shopped for separates, which, by the way, is in no way appropriate.
And he said he wanted Atmos. I mean, Emotiva has been promising that the XMC1 would be upgraded for over 2 years now. Still hasn't happened.
Yeah, so we're not worried about
that.
We will hook you up with a receiver.
Yes.
We will hook you up. But all this other stuff has to happen first. Go to your contractor, get a plan going. Come to us with that plan so that we can make sure that you're placing wires in all the proper locations, and then go back, get it done. Once the wires are all in the proper locations and the place is built out, give us the final dimensions, and then let's talk about budget at that point, because this could cost a considerable amount of money, and the rest, looking at speakers is putting the cart way before the horse.
Thinking a bit ahead in terms of what kind of general screen size do I want? What kind of seating distance do I want? What kind of speaker configuration do I want? That's all good stuff to do. You do want to have that in mind, because that does impact your construction potentially.
Right.
But the specifics of exactly which speakers in that, we can get to that later.
All right.
So, like I was saying, if you have in mind, okay, I think a false wall with an acoustically transparent screen, that's something worth knowing about, because then you can sort of plan ahead. But you need to focus on this space first. That is priority number one. We can do all kinds of skimping on the gear. The gear should not be our priority here at all. The room needs to be our priority. And to that end, one last thing I want to touch on is the floor, because this is just concrete slab.
Which is what you're probably going to have there. So you're going to put some sort of carpet in there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you could just do carpet directly over, although that's exterior slab. I don't know if you want to do carpet directly over. You could do the simple type of finishing, which is that plastic dimpled underlay. I highly recommend that, just like you would do in a basement. So it's the plastic dimpled underlay, a single layer of plywood directly on top of that, and you just tap on the plywood layer and that dimpled plastic right into the concrete, so it's all secured in there. And then you can put your carpet, your tile, whatever the heck you want to put on top of that. But I would get that thermal break off of the concrete. Otherwise, if your place does get cold, man, is it going to get cold through the floor if you have no thermal break at all. Just that plastic dimple is all you need. That if there's any condensation, if there's any water, it runs right underneath. It never gets into your theater gear. So doing something to finish your floor, and that's not tremendously expensive to do, and it doesn't take a ton away from your height either. So that's the way to do that. The dimple plastic plywood on top, Tapcon it all together, and then you carpet right over that.
He asks, what are, bar none, the best speakers we've ever heard? He's so impressed by his JBL Studio 530s that he's just curious what he ought to expect from $2,000 a pair or $4,000 pair of speakers. Are they unimaginably better than his JBLs, or are there some sort of upper limit you can hit where nothing really sounds any better? Your JBLs are literally the best speakers in the world. You can take that to the bank, sir. The best speakers in the world. They are the best speakers in the world, and you should never, ever listen to another pair of speakers for the rest of your life. I highly recommend that you insulate yourself from any more speaker experiences from now until the end of time, because what you are experiencing now can never be replicated. So let's just let that go the way it is. Let's just leave it right there. Let's not touch the delicate flower of your naivety. Naivety. Say it for me. That's it. Naivety. So whatever. I can't say it. Let's go with that.
Oh dear.
Are there better speakers than your speakers out there? There's a bunch of them, but that doesn't make any difference because your speakers are wonderful to you and you love them. And let's just not worry about that right now. Are there light year jumps from your speakers to other speakers? Probably. Is it dictated by price? Not necessarily. You're not going to just go out there and grab any old $2,000 pair of speaker or $4,000 pair of speaker and play them in say, oh yeah, these are light years better.
I mean,
not going to happen.
Yeah, the experience you had going from whatever you were listening to before, which is probably in your car, the stock system in your car, maybe,
or just TV speakers,
cool. Boom boxes, clock radios, the cheap headphones that came with your iPod. Like, if that's what you're hearing before, the gap that you got from going from those to the Studio 530s, which I think are very good speakers.
Yeah.
The gap from the Studio 530s to much more expensive speakers is not the same jump at all, in my opinion. Right. It is diminishing returns, big time. Yes. You got the huge experience of, I was listening to stuff before that literally did not play all the notes. I now have speakers that play all the notes. That is a huge gap, and you noticed it. What you would do from what you have now to something that we might call objectively better, in my opinion, you actually start getting into the territory of taking sound away. Now you're getting into, okay, the signal said stop, and it was 7 milliseconds later that my current speakers actually stopped instead of right when the signal said to. So you take away that tiny little bit of lag in the transient response. You take away a little bit of distortion. It's actually like a refining of the sound by subtracting any remaining tiny little bit of vestigial distortion that your Studio 530s have. That's the improvement you'd be looking at from here on out. It's not a giant leap.
That sort of experience of transcendental change by listening to something that's a completely different speaker design.
Sure, if you went to like an electrostatic.
That's exactly what I was thinking of. You go to an electrostatic speaker where, yes, the sweet spot is incredibly small, and you have to be sitting
and you might as well be wearing headphones.
At that point, you might as well be wearing headphones, but they're better than headphones. My experience is that they are better than headphones, even really good headphones. I've never experienced anything like really good electrostatic speakers.
Yeah, because they can still make the sound in front of you as well as pass right through your head like headphones do.
Yeah. So you can do it. Those are, the last one I heard were like, I don't know, $75,000, $50,000 a pair. I don't remember. It was something stupid, $30,000. Who cares? It was more than I was ever going to be willing to pay. But the difference in the sound quality or the experience was something that was eye-opening to me. After
it was like a unique experience. Yeah.
So can you have that experience again? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. It's going to cost you a bunch of money, and it may or may not be something you're really willing to live with. But
and for your movie watching and that, it might not even be desirable.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, just bar none, what are the best speakers you ever heard?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I I mean, the whatever those electrostatics were that I heard were fantastic.
I think those were the Martin Logan, like the.
They weren't Martin Logans. They
weren't?
They were
the
not.
Jensens?
Nope, they were not those either. They were. I heard them at a high-end shop, and they don't even make them anymore.
Oh, okay.
But I don't remember what
Quad?
they're called. Nope.
Trying to think of all the electrostats.
It was. I can't remember the name of the company right now. It's going to come to me later. But
all right.
those were probably. It doesn't matter. They don't make them anymore, and they were like $1 billion a pair.
I'm going to say Focal Utopias.
Okay.
And those are $130,000 and up. So it's a little bit up there, a little bit pricey.
Yeah, a little pricey. Carl just bought a 16-foot Airstream camper trailer. I don't know where this is going, but it's going to be interesting. I think you should get 2 subwoofers for this. It came with a 22-inch 1080p LG TV. You'd like to replace it with something Dolby Vision capable, but it can't be over 24 inches. Which direction?
Diagonal, 24-inch screen size. Yeah.
24 inches and still fit the pre-installed bracket. Are there any Dolby Vision TVs that small? If not, what's the best 24-inch or smaller HDTV he could install? The camper has a separate sound system, so the TV doesn't have to have built-in speakers. I don't have a clue.
Yeah, this is tough. So first of all, there are no Dolby Vision displays that small.
Do they even are the 4K? I guess there got to be 4Ks that are that small. But I mean, I hope this thing's like hanging right over your bed. Like this close.
Oh no, it's like right beside. You can see the LED TV listed. Like it's like just on the other side of the toilet.
Everything's just on the other side of the toilet.
Everything is just on the other side.
I mean,
of the
this is a 16-foot Airstream. Nothing is out of reach of the toilet. So,
LED TV is directly
so it's right
on
by
the
his. Like if you're lying in bed, it'd be by your left foot.
That's correct. Yeah.
That's
so
a very bad place for it.
So yeah, there's no Dolby Vision televisions that small. You're looking at like computer monitors, and this actually gets us into they did a whole new thing for computer monitors that they're calling display HDR, and they define display HDR 400, 600, and 1000, which basically tells you the peak light output.
The nits.
In nits, that's right, 400, 600, 1000. So you can go to display HDR, .org. And they maintain a list of ones that have that certification. So those are HDR10 compliant. They do the number that's in there. And right now the pickings are small, and actually none of them are 24 inches. They're all larger than that. Yeah, it's pretty tough. LG has a 32-inch HDR10 capable monitor, but it's 32 inches. So the only one I could find that's 24 inches and HDR10 compatible is a Dell model. There's a Dell monitor that is a 24-inch monitor. It's HDR10. It has 2 HDMI inputs, so you're not having to do anything particularly strange. Yeah. So what was the model number on that? Shoot, I have it here, but it's not showing up when I click on the link. I know it was a 2419 HM, I believe. Yeah.
What are you talking about? Wait, which one is it? The LG?
No, the Dell.
Oh, the Dell.
Yeah.
I'll click on it as well. I was doing.
Oh, it's because it took me to the Canada website and the link didn't work. Yes, you do that. But yeah, it's the 2419 HM from Dell. So it's 24 inches. Now the resolution is 1920 by 1080, but at least it's HDR compatible. So 24 inches. What do you care about the resolution?
Well, I'm on the website. Okay, there we go. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes. Dell 24 ultra thin monitor S2419HM.
There you go.
23.8 inch monitor. Let's be exact here.
Yes.
$300. Brightest ultra thin monitor in its class, featuring cinema color for HDR contact.
It's 400 nits.
Yeah.
So that's the best. That's the best one I know about.
All right, there you go. Dell. Infinite Gary. Gary has seen a handful of amplifiers where their specifications claim an exact doubling of watts for a 4 ohm load versus an 8 ohm load, 200 watts into 8 ohms, 400 watts into 4 ohms, for example. But most amplifier specifications show less than the exact doubling when the impedance is cut in half and be 200 watts into 8 ohms, but only 300 watts or 350 into 4 ohms, for example. Why is that? What is the difference about the amplifiers that claim the exact doubling? They're lying about the 8 watts. That's exactly what it is.
They're underreporting
the 8 watts. Yeah. So if they say 400 watts, 200 watts into 8 ohms, 400 watts into 4 ohms, what their amp will really do is 250, 275 into 8 ohms, but they're only claiming 200 watts. That's just,
yeah. I mean,
it happens all the time.
Purely mathematically, if you cut the impedance in half, you would double the output. You would double the wattage. But in the real world, some of the energy gets turned into heat. Nothing is 100% efficient. So you're just not going to get. So there's all the other specs. There's all the distortion specs.
Yeah.
So sometimes what you'll see is 200 watts into 8 ohms with 0.05 total harmonic distortion plus noise. And then it's 400 watts into 4 ohms, but that rises up to 0.1 total harmonic distortion plus noise or something like that. So the distortion spec changed along with it. So you can fudge the numbers, essentially, right? You can either underreport how much it actually puts into 8 ohms, or you can fudge the distortion spec.
And it comes down to what's going to sound best for the company. You know, if they are claiming 100 watts into 8 ohms and 200 watts into 4 ohms, they'd be better off claiming the true wattage, which might be 125, 130 watts into 8 ohms, because it sounds a lot better. But 200 watts, the difference between 200 and 250 watts into 8 ohms, when really what they're worried about is that 4 ohm spec. Maybe they're hedging their bets there that 200 and 400, you're going to be more impressed with the fact that they're able to exactly double their wattage. So, it happens all the time. I've actually asked amplifier manufacturers about that before, and designers. They're like, yeah, you can report it one way or the other. It doesn't really matter. But the fact is that if you're reporting exact doubling, their 8 ohms is being fudged.
Or the distortion spec. Sometimes they have different distortion specs between the two impedances. Yeah.
Dave on Twitter. Dave says he had a Yamaha Active Servo sub in his car. He's impressed with its bass performance from such a small enclosure. His first home theater subs were also Yamaha Active Servos. I hope he didn't take them out of his car. So he's just interested to hear if we have any thoughts on those.
They did have home models, so I'm
sure
guessing that's what they were.
I do remember. I think I remember those. Nope. I don't have any thoughts on those.
Oh.
Really.
I never heard them, so I don't have any thoughts that direction. I mean, a servo is just one way of creating a feedback circuit.
Yeah.
You can use digital signal processing to do it. You could use just a traditional amplifier current feedback design or a voltage feedback design. It's another way of creating a feedback design. So what a servo in a subwoofer or in a speaker is doing is you have the signal. That's an electrical signal. It's being fed into the speaker's voice coil. That's causing the speaker cone to move back and forth. The magnetic field is oscillating, going back and forth, and there's a permanent magnet, and the cone is acting against that permanent magnet, and it moves back and forth in and out. Well, when it moves back and forth in and out, you can also use that movement to then generate a current, because now you have physical movement with a magnet. So if you have another coil, you can then generate an electrical signal in the coil. That's your servo. That feeds back into the amplifier, which compares the outgoing signal to the feedback signal from the servo circuit. And it says, these two things are right in line with each other. That means everything's hunky-dory. Or these two things are not in line with each other. That means I either need to boost or cut the output until those two things are in line. Because the signal is saying move this much, and then the thing is actually moving, and maybe it's not moving accurately to what the signal asked it to do. The servo will tell the amplifier that it's a feedback circuit, and then the amplifier, if it's properly programmed, can compensate based on that. So that's all it is. That's what Rhythmic is using as well. They're using servo feedback to control the movement of their subwoofer drivers, and it can be a very effective thing if it's implemented.
And one of the reasons why I tend not to be fairly agnostic about these things is there are as many ways to build a speaker or sub as there are speaker designers. They all have their specialties and their ways, their preferred ways of doing things. And in the end, it doesn't really matter. It's all effective. Some are, they all have their limitations that have to be overcome. So if you're a good speaker designer, if you're a good subwoofer designer, you'll be able to create a sub or a speaker that sounds good given what the way that you design speakers and the limitations in the designs that you choose or the drivers that you choose or whatever. So you've heard some good servo subs, but it doesn't mean that servo subs are in fact good. It just means that the ones that you heard were well designed, or at least into your ears sounded that way. And that's fantastic. But when somebody says, what do you think of aluminum driver speakers? I don't think anything about them. I've heard some that are great and some that are bad. And I'm sure there's some servo subs out there that are garbage and a lot that aren't. So, yay. Let's go on. How much time do we have? Nathan has noticed that some Blu-rays and Ultra HD Blu-rays titles that have Atmos specifically list Dolby Atmos 7.1.4 on the back of the packaging rather than just Dolby Atmos with no specific number of channels. Is this just a marketing choice, or is it possible these are strictly limited to 7.1.4? And if we were to have, say, a 9.1.6 setup, 4 of your speakers would literally just sit there silent and unused. Would they be crazy enough to try and double dip with a 9.1.6 release in the future? And what if you have a turn-off with a full 24.1.10 setup? I gotta believe that's just marketing, because there's no reason why Atmos... it doesn't care. It's objects.
It's object-based audio, especially for the overhead layer. That's pretty much all objects up there.
The 7.1 point at least tells you that it's got that base layer,
right?
Which it should have anyways. If it's Atmos, it should have a 7 point.
Yeah, I've seen some that
layer.
say Dolby Atmos and then in parentheses Dolby True HD 7.1.
Right.
So that's good information, because that tells you that it's not a Dolby True HD 5.1 with Atmos extensions.
Which I think is something I don't think they should list the 7.1. They should list it if it's not. You know what I mean? Don't tell me that what it is. I expect it to be that. Like, don't tell me a car has 4 wheels. I know it has 4 wheels. Tell me if it doesn't have 4 wheels, because that's information I'm going to want to know before I buy it.
Yeah, they might just be indicating, what the configuration was for the mastering process.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the home mastering facilities, they have a 7.1.4 setup, and that's what they use.
Right.
But yeah, as far as the way that Atmos functions with the renderer that's built into any AV receiver, it will take those objects and play them through whatever configuration you have, all the way up to 24.1.10 if you have the system.
That's one of the things I like about Atmos is that it's got the ability to be upgraded over time without there being, change, just like a new format coming out. That once it's an object, it's always an object, and your decoder just has to decide how to make that object sound there, and that is just upgrading in your hardware but without you having to get a new player or anything like that.
I think it's mostly marketing, and I think maybe they're trying to convey, because most people do not understand this stuff. This is
I barely understand it.
We're a very niche market that's interested and understands some of this stuff. So I think they're just trying to go, this is different than 7.1, because you've seen 7.1 before. This is something new. I think that's really all they're trying to convey.
Yeah, I think so too. Nick has a plan in mind. He's going to be sitting 8 feet 7 inches from eyes to screen. He wants a really large, greater than 50-degree field of view. For him, the ideal screen size that distance would be 115 inches diagonal for a 16 by 9 IMAX image. He wants the screen to be motorized so he can have a flat panel behind it for casual TV viewing with the lights on. He doesn't want to sacrifice on center speaker placement, so he figures the screen will need to be acoustically transparent. Since you'll be sitting quite close, it seems like the Seymour AV Center Stage UF screen material will be the best acoustically transparent choice, but it is rated and it has been independently measured to have a gain of 0.8. Nick is thinking his projector will be a model very similar to the JVC X790, which according to reviews should be able to throw something in the range of 1300 lumens after calibration in HDR mode. He tried working out the math, and with that 0.8 gain on screen size of 115-inch size, it seems like he'll only be hitting around roughly 26-foot Lamberts, which is below the 30-foot Lambert target for HDR on projectors. He worked it out, and he figures he'll need to go down to a 105-inch screen if he wants the full 30-foot Lamberts with this 0.8 gain screen material. So, first of all, does he have all of his facts straight up to this point? And if so, is there a different acoustically transparent screen material that will still look good from only 8 feet 7 inches away, but still has a higher gain so you can have the 115-inch screen size that he wants while still hitting 30-foot Lamberts of HDR? Holy Crap, that was
Numbers.
a lot of numbers.
Numbers.
I don't know.
You don't know.
But the reality here is I gotta believe that the difference in your viewing between, would he say he thought it was 26 and 30 foot Lamberts? I don't know that you're going to be sitting there going, oh, this HDR is unacceptable. Look at this garbage. It's so dim. 26 foot Lamberts. Oh, call it 26 inch Lamberts are terrible.
Well, maybe he does care that much, and he'll spend the $25,000 for like the RS 4500 or something, so he can blast out them lumens.
Get the lumens, all the lumens.
So I mean, your math is pretty much spot on. I mean, the exact number with a 0.8 gain screen for 30-foot Lamberts would be 108 inches. So yeah, 105, right around what you said. That is assuming 1300 lumens. So maybe he saw the exact measurement that was like 1260 or something like that. So he might have that exactly spot on. 115 inches with a 0.8 gain screen and 1300 lumens coming out of the projector should give you 26.5 foot Lamberts. So all you do is take the number of lumens, divide it by the square footage of the screen. So convert your inches into feet and figure out your square footage of your screen. So divide the lumens by the square footage and then multiply by the gain. That will tell you foot Lamberts. That's the equation to figure it out. So clearly you already knew that and got the numbers right on. So the only alternative I can suggest would be the IlluneVision.
Okay.
IlluneVision's Reference Studio 4K Audio Weave, which claims a gain of 1.15. Now, in measurement, it's probably closer to like 0.9. So it's ever so slightly brighter. But I think that gets you like just there. Its weave is just about as tight.
Is it cheaper than the Seymour AV?
In Canada, yes. In the US, no.
Then I think you should go with the Seymour AV.
Well, they're highly comparable. You're talking a couple $100 difference. So, yeah, that's the only alternative I would hasten to recommend there.
All right. Whatever. We're
it's
talking
available
about
in a tab tension
3.5 lumens when it comes down to it. It's like so minor. All right, one last question. Mark. Okay. Mark frequently hears us saying the initials DSP and DAC. I almost said K. He's done some Googling to try to better understand what these terms mean, but the technical definitions go all over the place and quickly get confusing, so he'd appreciate a clear definition from us that really just sticks to how these terms apply to audio and home theater hardware. So DSP and DAC. So DSP is digital signal processing. What this is a computer or an algorithm within your device or receiver, sometimes your subwoofer, many times your subwoofer, which does something to the signal via that computer processing. So whatever it might be. There could be digital, like DSPs cover the gamut.
Yes.
Of everything. So anytime something is being manipulated in any way, that's DSP. So one DSP might be, the stuff that you've probably heard before, like all the different listening modes, like the rock concert listening mode, all of a sudden everything sounds echoey, or the jazz mode where everything sounds stupid.
Right, that's a DSP listening mode, for example. Yeah.
But there's also DSP that happens on your subwoofers. So say your SBS subwoofer might have a DSP which analyzes the signal that comes in. If it says, hey, this is going to damage the speaker, we're going to cut this off at this point to make sure that there's not going to be any damage to our speaker. Or it may be something like Odyssey, which takes a look at everything that comes in and applies all sorts of filters for filters to make sure that it adjusts for your room as best it can. All of that is digital signal processing and more. There's lots of it out there. Yeah. So what does that mean? Well, whenever we say DSP, a lot of people take that to mean something negative, but it's often not. It's often just...
We'd be lost without DSP for modern home theater.
Yes.
Your bass management, your trim DSP levels, your distance settings, all of that. The point when you say digital signal processing is that simply clues you in that whatever signal came in, if it began as analog, if it began as digital, it doesn't matter. It means that we know for a fact it was turned into a digital signal at some point. Otherwise, you cannot apply digital signal processing to it.
Right.
So that's sort of when you're talking about strictly about audio, there will be the people who say, I want to listen to a vinyl record and I do not want it converted to digital at any point.
Good luck,
Therefore, I do not want DSP, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's where you might hear something like that come up.
Well, you hear it all over. There's a guy who records vinyl onto reel-to-reel. I'm sure he's all about DSP.
So yeah, it's simply
it's
saying
not
that
a bad thing, is what we're basically
No.
coming. It's just a reality of modern home theater life, and it's important. It's important. We need it. It's bass management, like Rob said, Odyssey and all the room correction. That's all DSP. And yes, there's listening modes that are terrible and stupid, and I don't even know why they still exist. But they're there, and somebody must be using them, or else Yamaha just keeps them around for whatever reason. So.
But
the other one.
Well, I just wanted to, one more thing.
Yeah,
Like,
go ahead.
let's say you're using a mini DSP, right? It's right there in the name, mini digital signal processor, and you're using that. Let's say you're building your own 2 or 3-way speaker, and you want to use that as your crossover network instead of traditional, capacitors, inductors, and resistors, which is how you build a traditional crossover in a speaker. This is saying we're going to take the signal. We're going to turn that signal into a digital signal, and then we're going to apply all of our filters digitally. And then we're going to turn it back into an analog signal and feed it out to the amplifier, which then feeds the speaker drivers. So, yeah, it's really just a thing to say we are processing the signal digitally. That's purely
And
what
most
it means.
signals these days are coming in digital anyways.
They begin digital, sure. Yeah.
You're not like it's having that many conversions going on, which brings us to DAC. DAC is digital to analog conversion.
Yes.
So that's when you've got your signal in a digital domain, and you need to convert it to analog so that your speakers or amplifier is able to amplify it, and then your speaker is able to play it. Okay, that's all that is DAC. So what is a standalone DAC? A standalone DAC is a standalone device that takes a digital signal, turns it to analog so that it can be played by the amplifier. That's all it is.
And there is also an ADC,
right?
Analog to digital converter. So again, a great example, the mini DSP units, like the mini DSP 2x4. It begins as an analog to digital converter because it accepts an analog signal only. You can't put a digital signal into it. So it only accepts an analog signal. It then goes through an analog to digital converter. It then goes through its DSP, its digital signal processing. Then it goes through a DAC. It goes through a digital to analog converter and comes back out the other end as an analog signal again. Now, where the confusion comes in is if you go to Amazon and you type in DAC, you'll see a whole bunch of products that are called DACs.
Yeah.
But they're actually usually much more than just a digital to analog converter. They're usually a digital analog converter and an amplifier.
Right.
Or they're a digital to analog converter and a preamplifier.
Right.
Or and a
Or
signal
all those
generator.
things.
Or,
It does a lot of stuff. Yeah.
And a converter and a splitter and like whatever. They're usually not strictly just a digital to analog converter. And that's where the confusion comes in, where we've had people, particularly on YouTube, come in and go, you guys don't know what you're talking about when you say, DACs don't sound different from each other. I got these 2 different DACs and they sound totally different. It's like, but they're not just a digital analog converter. They're digital analog converters with amplifiers built into them, and it's the amplifiers that are sounding different, or they have completely different power supplies, or like there's something else in addition to strictly what DAC stands for, which is just digital to analog conversion.
When we talk about DACs, and that technology, for years now, DACs has been a mature technology. This has been a technology that is not, you're taking analogs, a digital signal, and converting it to analog. You're taking zeros and ones and turning it into a waveform that the amplifier can amplify. That is not hard. It has been hard for a long time. So if somebody comes out with a better DAC, you're like, we're talking zero audible difference between DACs. There's almost no audible difference. If you hear a difference between DAC, one of them's faulty, or there's a lot more going on than just digital analog conversion. Those are the 2 options. It ain't the DAC being different. It's not that they got some new chip came out that's so much better. don't buy into the hype, dude.
But it is important to know the distinction between what DAC actually means versus what is the products that are just colloquially called DACs. Yeah.
So if he's interested in learning more, and I don't know why you would be after we just told you all that, is there a good book or particular website that we'd recommend? Go, Rob, because I want to finish this podcast.
You betcha. So there is a good book. It's called Digital Signal Processing, or Understanding Digital Signal Processing is the full title. It's in its 3rd edition. You can get it from Amazon. You probably want to have at least 2 years of engineering in university to understand so a lot of the stuff they're talking about, but you could just read it from a layman's point of view, ignore the math. It's a little bit difficult if you ignore the math, but you kind of can, and that's a very broad overview of everything that digital signal processing covers, which is a lot. So a really good place to start are the couple of videos that they posted at xiph.org. That's xiph.org. Now that just gives you a very good beginner's understanding of how you go about converting an analog signal into a digital signal and what it means to represent an audio waveform digitally, and the things it doesn't mean. We see these representations of waves as like these stair-step forms, and that isn't how it works.
Right.
That's a really poor visual demonstration that unfortunately has spread, and people think that's what digital audio means. It's not that at all. And the Xiph videos explain that really well. So
right. Those are good videos.
Yeah. That's those are some good places to start.
All right, who do we have left?
We have Mike M., Jeremy K. I enjoy Jeremy's questions, so that'll be fun to talk about next week. Dan W. and Steve from Twitter.
All right, we'll get you guys next week. We want to thank our listeners of the week, Miguel, Jason, Alex, and Robert, for going to www.avrant.com and clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, leaving us a PayPal donation. Thank you, Miguel, Jason, Alex, and Robert.
I'll say it again, Miguel, Jason, Alex, Robert, thank you very much for those donations.
Thank you to our 53 patrons on patreon.com.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our 53 patrons, thank you so much. That's patreon.com/AVRantPodcast.
And thank you, Randy, Jack, and Neil, for talking us up to different manufacturers. Specifically, Jack changed his signature on his forum post ID thing so that people could come to AV Rant. So he encourages other people to do the same. So thank you, Randy, Jack, and Neil.
Yeah, Jack, I like that idea. So yeah, anybody else who's on the forums, you can change your signatures, send people our way. Randy, congrats on those Denon Heo speakers, and thanks for letting Accessories for Less know that we sent you their way. And Neil, congrats on the SVS SB12 NSD. Really nice up.
All right, guys. That is our podcast for this week. Send your questions to question@avrant.com. For AV Rant, I'm Tom Antry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AV Rant.
Now go out and listen to something.